Hello, everyone. This is the Eddie Network Podcast, and I'm glad you're with me. I'm your host, Ed Breniger, and today I'm privileged to share with you a conversation I had in 2023 with the second greatest philosopher ever to come out of the nation of Denmark, the first being Soren Kierkegaard. Ole Fogh Kirkeby is a philosopher and a business person who has had a tremendous impact upon many people in the Scandinavian countries. And when I was introduced to him, I was warned that his philosophy is deep, and I better get a handle on it if I'm going to have a conversation with him. So I bought two or three of his books and read them, and found that we are congruent, and we share some things. We share a perspective of things that it really is a wonderful thing, and it's nice to see someone of his caliber who has gone before me to say this is the way I see things, and I agree with him. Obviously, you can tell I enjoyed this conversation, and I know you will too. So here I am with Ole Kirkeby, and we're talking about the event. You'll find out what that means momentarily. Thank you for watching, and I'm glad you're here with us at the Eddie Network Podcast. Bye-bye. Hello, everyone. This is Ed Breniger, and welcome to the Eddie Network Podcast. My guest today is Ole Fogh Kirkeby of the Copenhagen Business School. Ole is a Danish philosopher, and he's known for many things, but in particular, he is known for writing about and thinking about what is known as the event. This is a particular area of modern contemporary philosophy that is discussed, and he is recognized as one of the leading voices, leading thinkers in this notion of the event. Ole and I will be talking about this in our conversation, but prior to bringing him on, I wanted to give you a little taste of his thinking about the event in a video that had been done sometime in the past. And I'm going to give you a few clips from this just to kind of give you a taste of what the event is about. And I think that once you grasp this, you'll find that there is something deeply true about this. And you will hear in Ole's conversation with me resonances to other conversations that I've had here on the Eddie Network Podcast, where we have talked about not just who we are as persons, but who we are always becoming as persons. So this is an idea which I think is worth considering and reflecting on, so that we can recognize that in my language, that we're always in transition, every one of us, all the time. So the event concerns how we are becoming, and the event is a singular portion of the life that we live. So here is Ole speaking about the event.
During the last 20 years, I have speculated on the event. We live in events. We are ourselves events by the fact that we're changing all the time. The event is a mystery, might be a happy mystery. It's an opening to us if we want to. That means if we do not close it. And I think the manager, the leader, has to learn not to close the event. Of course, you have to close the event sometimes because you have to set the agenda, you have to decide, you have to set what actually happened at a meeting. But most of the time, you could not perhaps postpone it, but let it hover in a certain uncertainty and insecurity. We have to not to name the event, to wait for the event, to give events its time, to dwell in the event, to listen to the event, to be able to receive the event, to prove worthy of the event. Emeritus said it very well. Do not wish that everything that happened as you wished it, but wish that it happened as it happened. And this is a very strong stance. There is an empty space inside everything that happens. And this is rather obviously, if you think about the fact that you never know for sure what actually happened. You can discuss what happened forever as long as people have the strength to discuss it. Its capacity of being an empty space means that it is a creative place. The empty space creates, like the eye of the storm, or like the first movement of the universe, or the first moment before the universe created the moment. This emptiness also gives us two opportunities: to reinterpret the event all the time, as long as we live, as long as the world exists, and to understand that we cannot name it as we like. Even if we are totally consenting upon the facts which happened, nobody can be sure. The event is actually in a tension between what rushes away and never is here, can't be grasped, can't be stopped, and what in a way lingers with us and is a part of us, a sort of time inside time, another type of time, a time also outside time, the moment. The events inside the narratives could always be interpreted different. And this is, of course, an enormous freedom of thought, that you can rethink your life all the time, and also rethink the history of the world, and actually see, perhaps in the end, not what happened, you could never see that, but you can see another picture of what happened. A picture of bodies, of forces, of fights, which is often hidden in the official stories. What is in our power? We have to influence. And of course we also have to try to move the demarcation line and also influence that which is not yet in our power. But we have to act, and we have to change the world, and we have to change the event. But on the other hand, we also have to receive this event from ourselves and from our own actions. And we have to learn from what we are doing about what we are thinking and about what the event is.
Ole, but I'm glad you're here. Thank you for taking the time to be with us, and I look forward to exploring some of the thoughts that you've had. We have been brought together by our mutual friend Kenneth Mikkelsen, co-author of the Neo-Generalist, and Kenneth is your biographer, and I look forward to seeing the work he produces. So
yes, it is very, very clever, very, very good.
So welcome, and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you've been doing over the course of your life, and it's fascinating.
Well, I'm 76 years old, and I think I'm a Christian. And when I was in my teens, I wanted to be a priest, or a Lutheran priest. Mm-hmm. But then the socialist and the Marxist movement came in the 60s, and then I joined them. Or I would say the first three most important books in my life. It's Meister Egerhard's, the German mystics, sermons and tractatus. It is the Marxian manifest, Communist Manifest, which actually is a bad book, but the thoughts are not that bad. Spoke Zarathustra. And I think if you take these three and press them together to get the essence of how I start up in thinking and also actually in living. Well, I was young in the 60s, and we thought that it was possible to create new life forms and so on. But I was always in my heart a Christian. But I also became a socialist, and it was in a way my fate, because I think I'm the now living person in Denmark who know the most about Karl Marx theories. But I criticized Marxism because I meant that if you or thought that if you have to deal with Marxism, you have to be able to show that or prove that Marxism can solve the most important problem of all in Marxist theory, the transformation of values to prices. So I worked with this, and the way I solved it by using neoliberal thoughts and all the classic economists, sorry, it made the university was dominated by what you would call dogmatic Marxists, and they didn't like me. So I had to go another way. I always been my biographer has shown me, and I've realized that I've always found in communities, but I don't believe, of course, in communism and in any kind of dogmatism. But it formed my way into which I later got into leadership and thinking about leadership, because actually I don't like leadership. I think the world would be better without leadership. And I thought that you should have co-leaders and not super leaders. But anyhow, I saw all the problems, and I realized that you have to have leaders, but hence you have to have ethical, moralist leaders. So the way in which my socialist engagement about a community, which is of course never overt, never on the surface, but always behind a dream, an utopian dream. I thought it could be realized not by relying on the proletariat, as they say, on the workers' movement, but by relying on the consciousness of leaders. So when I was around in the 30s and in the 40s, I changed my mindset, and I began to think, if you have to change this society to a humanist society, you have to do that by addressing the leader's consciousness. So I began to think about consciousness, and hence I became a philosopher. So it went these routes, it took these routes to create philosophy. And hence of course, I knew that if you speak about mind, you have to speak about the body. Mm-hmm. And I think the most important insight I had in my life, it can be phrased in a little phrase by Aristotle from De Anima, or Kirkeby. His psychology is called from about the soul, and he says, "Hikaia organon estin organon." That means the hand is the organ of organs, and I think using the hands, touching the world by moving, and movement is also kinesis in Greek, is also very, very important. By touching the world, you create the world. And I think I began to think about, because I came from a socialist tradition, I came from and I addressed a tradition of management and leadership. I thought, what do they all have in common? They create communities, but also they create ways of thinking. But from where does it come? Yeah, it comes from using your hand, touch, understand. Okay, that's a bodily image. But I began to work with images and metaphors, because they tell us what is the origins of thinking. And the origin of thinking is using the metaphors of using the hand, the body in relation to the world, transforming that to words, to concepts, to guidings for sensing. So what I did was to understand that the body is so extremely central. But how do you describe the body? It's a capacity to eventing. So I went to the event with my thinking. So when I was around in the middle of the 40s, I wrote what in Danish is called the surgical thesis. It's something more than a PhD. It's more complicated and takes longer time. And it was called Event and Body Mind, because I think the body is thinking and thought is bodying or incorporating itself in the body. So that was what directed my way of thinking. And it also was the core of an ethics. And this ethical thought actually dealt with the fact that you only you only are able to become yourself when you can realize yourself to the body. But what is the body? The body always belongs to the others. So you have to understand the fact that if you have to find out the most important questions of all, who are you? And that's the leadership questions of all questions. You have to realize it goes to the others. Tell me who you are. Yes, I can tell you who you are if you tell me how you conceive about other people. So the other is something, I think it's beautiful. So I have worked with how, it's not more than once ago, I was the Financial Society Corporation of Denmark. They asked me to make a speech about wandering. And I said to them, the most important thing in the world is don't categorize other people. Don't have any conceptions about other people. Kill your predictions. Open up to let the other being become to your thoughts, to your way of touching them. So I've been working with that for many years. And since the event is very important for, yes.
Well, it seems that what you're describing is what I would say a perception of the world as one of where we're in relationship with all parts of the world. You know, it's relationship to people, to, you know, a notepad, to a community, and it's also maybe it's the mind-body thing of the relationship of the mind to the hand as we look at how it types on the computer, paints a painting, that these are all different types of relationships that we are engaged with. And I don't think we normally think in terms of relationship. I think we think in terms much more as objects and subjects only. And that's kind of that separation is part of the problem that we face.
Now you touch the most important problem for me, because I created this, we can talk about that later, this dialogical practice called Protreptic. But by reading linguistic science, I learned that the verb is prior to the substantive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's called seeing before it calls eye. It's called fast because before it's called horse. It's called singing because before it's called sing. And I think the object is, of course, the wrong way of perception. There are wrong ways of perception and there are right ways of perception. And the right way of perceptions in an communal relation, it's the you, not the it, but the you. So I worked for a long time with you, and I created what I have a competition with somebody called Hus H.C. Ørsted. He's so famous, and he created 2,000 words, and I've only created 50. So I'm lagging behind like a golfing handicap, you know. I think I can reach.
Maybe yours is more elegant. That's right. Yeah. Maybe yours is more elegant.
But oh, I hope so. Yeah, of course, that's right. I have to make new standards and criteria. That's you're right.
Yes.
But I made some 6 eventuals. I took the word event and then I transformed it into eventual. That means ways of being, and the ways of being are opposite to existent. The way of existentials, the Heideggerian way of thinking, and so on. Because it always relates to the other person. Mm-hmm. I created a word in Greek, heterotelos. That means to be on behalf of the other person. And I imagined and I researched and I created 6 ways of being in way on behalf of the other, of being a servant of the other person in the event, of eventing or making the event in a way so you are the other person's servant. And I think that's really extremely important for leadership. Because when I started writing about leadership, I made it different. And it was the first in Denmark. Between you had probably had it earlier in the States, but between management and leadership, because management means you that's a hand again, but it's a bad way of using the hand, like the horses in the circus. But leadership is a very complicated and beautiful word, because to lead actually means to suffer. If you go a little bit back in etymologically, it means it's related to subfera. That means to go down. That means to suffer. But if you go a little bit longer back, that is 5,000 years, it is related to an etymological root called rek, and that means to die. And this actually, the leader is the person who is able to die for the community, incorporate the community. And if you should be able to totally incorporate the community, you must be able to die for it.
Are you, in saying that, is that in part a reflection of the character of Christ in his sacrifice? Is that a part of how you view this?
Yes, of course, Christ is the perfect leader. I love that's the word in the New Testament, which in Greek is katalage, that means atonement.
Mm-hmm.
And the leader is an atoner or a reconciler,
Right.
definitely. And if you read the anthropologists, they will also say they are much more cynical and not necessarily Christian, but they will Christian, but they will say the leader is of course, a warrior and a bureaucrat, but also a priest. So this function, the leader has always had these 3 functions, and you cannot just say goodbye to the past. You have to realize that the real good leader has to incorporate all these 3 roles or functions. I don't like the word function or role, but yes, these ways of being.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And when I first became interested in leadership, it was in the mid 1980s, and my first reaction was, in delving into the literature, was leadership is not a role or a title; it's a way we function.
Yeah, exactly.
And so my definition of leadership became, all leadership begins with personal initiative to create impact that makes a difference, that matters. And that means that everyone can function as a leader in a family, in a community, in a business, wherever it may be. If everyone just takes initiative to make a difference in the world will be a better place, allegedly. So is that, I mean, and so I want to inject this idea of the event or the eventual into this, because it sounds like what you're describing is that there is this space, not physical space, but this space where we approach, we act, and we depart, and it's all one, and it's in it, you know. Yes. It's constantly, the term I would use is it means that we're constantly in a state of transition, that nothing is ever fixed or set or final. We're constantly in a mode of growth or exploration, discovery, however it may be. How is that a way of understanding your idea of the event?
Indeed, very, very well, because I'm a process philosopher, and when I should describe the event, I invented a word for it called the Alma event. That means that, of course, honoring the feminist movement, but Alma was very old and very important in our culture. And I think it's yes, the Alma event. That's I think it's very I was an epistemologist and an ontologist, But to understand how these things work, or how we should think about the way we think about these things, I think we have to think about the surface and the depth, the phenomenon and the essence. Okay, of course that's a scientific way of thinking, but inside it there's something else I think that's very important. In Greek, you could exchange these words, or you could look at them in another light and say, well, the essence is not necessarily surface or depth or phenomenon or essence, but it might be expression and receiving. And I went to Hamburg 2 days ago with my coming wife, and we make a recension of Martha Argerich, which my wife happens to know. And since I am also a musician, in the last 20 years, every day I played the chaconne of Bach, and they actually played the chaconne in different versions. And then I say, wow, you could use a new set of concepts here, expressing, manifesting on the one hand, and receiving on the other side. And receiving, that is in Greek, the komai, and that's a word of humility. Mm-hmm. Because you have to know you must be worthy of receiving something. That's why values are so important. And if you are able to receive something, you also must transform it. And I think that's what happens in the work of Bach. Every time you listen to it, it is transformed and is at the same time transforming you. And I would like and I would hope that leaders would think in this way, that they are medias of receiving something, which they have a deep responsibility to keep and to put their heart into, because they are not casual persons. They are very, very, very important persons, because leaders change our world and form our world. I don't think they know it all the time, but they actually do that.
So let me ask you this. I think you've said something about what you think of leadership, and you see it as a good term. But what is your thoughts about how we should develop people as leaders, particularly if they're going to be, quote, the manager, but they're going to be organizational leaders? How do you see seeing not only businesses but schools of leadership functioning in this way?
I think that there are two fundamental ways. The one is the way of the coming Buddha. His father wanted to take care of him in every way. So he should know death, he should know poverty, he should know illnesses and so on. So he was incarcerated, so to speak, in this castle. But he went up on the wall and looked. And on the other side, he saw a dying person. He saw a person in severe illness, and he saw a person struck with poverty. And I think that's one way to develop leadership. They have to see what reality is, and they have themselves to suffer. So that's a suffering part of leadership. Other is the gold spoon way. Nothing happens. They just rush through everything to the end of their position and so on. So of course you have to. A real leader must know poverty, illnesses, pain, and I think Freud destroyed our concept of pain, because pain, like guilt, and it also destroyed our concept of guilt, are the most important concepts of building an ethos, as the Greeks would say. The Greeks were very, very good. Ethos, that was the eta, the long E, and that means habitat. That means the place from which you come, and the values which are incorporated in you. And if you so use the short E, epsilon hexis, that means the way you use it to develop and form yourself. So it's very important here to understand that there's only one way to develop leaders. They must confront pain, and the way to confront pain is also asking the question, how do you what do you use when you are confronting pain? And what you do use when you are confronting pain, there's only one remedy, that's values. And values are the most important things in our life. In the old language, Proto-Indo-European, the root would, for the Germanic version of values, which is worth in English and wert in German and værdi in Danish, that is to take care, to be to look at something very intensely, to be conscious of it, and also means to guard, and also means to lift up like air, to be enthusiastic and so on. And in the southern realms of the Indo-European language, with Greek and Latin and so on, you have the val and value and so on, which you also have in English, which means to be strong. So values they are what makes you strong, what makes you focused, and what makes you responsible and aware of other people's needs. And the leader is a person who must be aware of other people's needs.
I've been focused on values my whole career because I see them as essential. I see them as foundation. And what I tell people when I take them, I have a little personal strategic planning process where people can decide, look into how they want to change or the transition they want to go through to their next place in their career, that sort of thing. And I start with helping them identify what their values are. And I tell them that these are going to be foundational, and they have to be of a sort that you're willing to sacrifice to preserve these values. And you're willing to let go of something which seems very attractive in order to preserve these values. And then, and only then, are they true values. They're not just abstract ideas, but there's something that's deeply into the marrow of your being.
I totally agree, because then again, you have the pain. That means you have to qualify. So you have to have the right to have values, and the criteria of qualification is pain.
Yes.
You say you have to give up something, but I say pain, because when I was young and wrote the first books about leadership, I thought about the cross of the leader. The leader must be able to suffer. I think suffer is better than pain. Yeah. So it's are you actually able to are you willing to suffer? That then if you're not willing to suffer, you can never incorporate a value. Value is a game. It's a game between suffering and joy. But you have to go the sufferer's way.
And the suffering has meaning because it can bring joy, and joy has meaning because that you have suffered to realize it. I mean, I think there's that eventuum operating there, but in the experience of values becoming realized in your life.
Yes, you have to be. That's again value. You have to be worthy of your leadership by the suffering you can carry on your back. And that's then Christ come again. And Christ is, of course, the servant leader, the real leader, because he dies for our happiness. It's difficult to understand, but he actually does that.
Well, it's difficult as modern people to understand it because we're not.
Yes, I don't understand. Why are it difficult to understand?
Well, I think it's because we don't think of ourselves as giving up our lives for someone else. unless you maybe serve in the military or you're a law enforcement person, or a fireman, that you run to the fire, you run to the military conflict, you run towards that. But those people are unique. I think for most people that they see the world as being there for them, and rather than something that they give up in order to realize something greater. So
I think so.
I want to ask you about this idea that you have carried forth, the new protreptic, and I'm fascinated by this because, I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I see this as a way of taking Socratic dialogue and making it practical in a business context, and or in a society context. I mean, imagine using this in the context of a political debate between two candidates for the president of a nation. I mean, the value of this just emboldens my imagination to think of what is possible through this. So would you mind describing to us what you see there?
I think actually the core of the word is protreptic is not difficult. It's trepo or streifein in Greek, and it means to turn around. We have that in tropes, yes, around our world, and when we are traveling to the tropes. But it's actually to stimulate, inspire another person to take her life seriously. And what is serious? It's in Danish it is called alvor. That means totally true. But it's related also to vor. That's related to worth, to value. So it means to make a human being realize what her values are, to analyze her motives behind her values. And I think that cannot be pragmatically done or functionally done. There are 4 core values. I think even I spoke with a person yesterday, and that made me very happy because I love animals, and I think our way to treat animals, that's so terrible. So but even animals has this 4 corners of values. They have the good, the right or the just, the true, and the beautiful. And I think it's dominating our lives. And I think people always ask me, what do the Muslims, how do they think about it in Africa? So actually, UNESCO showed that they all have these 4 core values. This square, I call it the Greek square because not exactly Greek, because Plato would think a little bit of this, but almost the same. But this square, I think, I thought it very, very much true. I thought about, are there other positions? Are there other points in the square? And I thought, what about love? But I think love, which the Greeks would have 4 concepts of love. They would have the storge, that means family love. They have philia, that means, well, friendship, but much more than that. They have eros, which means the desire of other bodies, but also the desire of yourself and desire of your own work. And then agape, which of course is such a beautiful word from St. Paul probably. But we have to debate to think that whatever we do, none of these 4 concepts of love can exist for themselves. They have always to be reduced to the good. And why? Because if they are not reduced to the good, they would have power in them. Because, as Nietzsche said, the one who has the right to word things or put things into words, that's the conqueror. But I want to have a language, a new humanism, which is not the conqueror's language. Which is I made one of my Greek words I created is tapainophrosyne. You know, phrosyne in Greek, that means capacity.
Right.
Sophrosyne, that means temperance in Latin and in English. But tapainophrosyne means the capacity of being human, of being of doing humility, of shaping humility. I think that's from actually that's a goddess in Greek behind that. Eidos, that means the way to be decent, the way to receive things in the right way. But I think it's very, very important to understand the good is behind everything. If we have to develop a new world, a new society, a new utopian thinking, we cannot escape the good. And the good is simply defined as a golden rule. It's not that complicated.
Yeah.
If you take it seriously, well, bang, bang, it's there.
And it has.
And that's the way
Well, the golden rule has many versions throughout world cultures, but it's kind of a universal guide for human.
Exactly, because you cannot bend it that much. If you try to bend it, you bend it onto yourself and not to itself. You cannot do that. So I think that's very important. It's behind everything, the good, and I think every people know it if you actually summon them to express their thinking.
So let me ask you one more question, and I'm curious as to what you are now curious about. What is it that you are studying? What is it that you're investigating now? Here you are, 76. I'm 70. I mean, we're close in age, and I see that my own curiosity it continues to expand and become incorporating the inventum for my entire life, that curiosity.
Yes.
So what is it that you're interested in what you're working on now?
I think it would be stupid to exclude the context of your life from the way you're thinking. I never tried to do that, but I always tried to think like a mystic, and then I transferred it into words. I think the Russian Vygotsky said it very beautiful. Thinking is a cloud, and the word they are drops from the cloud. I would use another metaphor. I would say thinking is like a bottle of wine, and the thoughts are and the words are what you spill when you spill it on the surface. No, but I can ask you that. I'm 56 years and I fell in love with a woman who's a very, 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 very strong woman, and she's a poet, and she speaks 9 languages. She's a Latino woman, and she taught me that I have to think about the weak, and I have to think much stronger about feminism than I did before. So I think we men, without being servile and without being strategic, so we have to be a part of creating a new humanism. And I created humanism for the weak, of course, in the socialist tradition. But I think the concept of weak and the concept of the suffering and the concept of people objectified and so on, it's widening with the LGBT movement and so on. And I think we who have the intellectual capacities, we have to take their experiences very, very seriously. So we have to try to create a new humanism. So that's why I'm thinking about if I'm able to, because I feel I myself were trying to, with my eventuals and my Protreptic and so on, to create a new humanism. But I've not been, what you would say, not been strong, not been consequent enough. So that's what I'm working with. And I think we should all work with it.
I very much identify with this idea of the new humanism, and many of the people that I've talked with here on the podcast have talked about that very same thing. And I think it's not like, say, the humanism of the Renaissance.
No.
have a relationship to it, but it's not. It's something very different, and it has to somehow address the world of technology and artificial intelligence, and for that humanism to actually find a ground, a set of values which allow us together to live together in a better world than maybe we have experienced.
In a better world. And there are so many voices arising, which we have to recognize. Because as I would say, and that's actually a Stoic concept, that anyone who pretends to be a leader, or who wants to be a leader, actually has to at least accomplish two things: the capacity to recognize the interests, the feelings, the pains of other peoples, and on the other hand, to be able to set them free. But it's an act of power to set other people free. That's the core, the terrible core of socialism, because you have to be a servant of the will of other people to set themselves free. But as a protreptic, you can never have the knowledge of other people, but you have to be a servant of the way the other people present their knowledge of themselves to themselves. And I think that's a new way of thinking. See, I don't like Heidegger because he was, in a way, a fascist, but he says something very beautiful. It's etymologically. He say in Danish and German, the word for thinking is tænke and denken. But what is it? Its root. It's thinking, thanking. So denken, the root is dank. So to think is to thank. And I think we should learn this. We shall think as if we were thanking. And who are we thanking? I think that's the most beautiful word in our tradition, at least in the Western tradition. That's the root is pri or prios. That means free, and it means friend. It means Odin's wife Frigg. It means of course free, and it means love and so on. But there's another core of it in Celtic and German, and it is to be protected by your own.
Yeah.
And I think freedom is an expression of being free, but who secures your possibility of liberate yourself to be free? That's the others. So we have to thank for our thinking, because our thinking also comes from the others. And that's an experience, I think, in a way, like Freud proved himself said, and Mozart said, when people say, well, how do you accomplish that, and how can you think that? I say, I'm just a common thief. But a thief is a person who learns and receives from the community and inside you.
Yeah.
Which you incorporate through language.
I like that very much. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's been what a treat. And as I said earlier, it's an honor to meet you. And Kenneth has said so much about you, and his admiration for you is very high. And I understand that now. And I wish you well on the completion of your biography, and I hope that it gets a wide reading, because I think you have much to say to us, and here in the modern world, and particularly here in the Western countries of the modern world. So thank you for coming on, and thank you everybody for watching. Please subscribe and hit the like button, and if you have a question or a thought, please offer it, because we would love to hear from you. And
I'm honored. Thank you very much.
And thank you, and we will see you next time here on the Eddie Network podcast. Bye-bye.